council meeting. I now call this meeting to order. I trust that your cell phones have all been put on silence. This time I'm going to ask Councilman Ledford if he would lead us in the pledge and invocation if he so desires.
Chair, would please stand for me. American flag, repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Special presentation this afternoon, ADA Celebration and Awareness Month, will be presented by Mr. Tony Sammons. Mr. Sammons, thank you for presenting that this afternoon for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. Good to see you all today. And I thank you for this opportunity to read the proclamation. And it reads, whereas the Mayor's Council on Disability, the MCD, had its inception in 2006 as a council whose focus is to provide direction and guidance to the Mayor and Chattanooga City Council by proposing policies, programs, practices, and procedures that give equal opportunity for all individuals with disabilities, empowering them to achieve inclusion and integration in all aspects of society. And whereas nearly 29% of adults in the state of Tennessee have some form of disability and deserve equal access to all aspects of living as those without a disability. And whereas Chattanooga's residents with disabilities are actively engaged, resourceful, and involved, and are a valuable asset to the city of Chattanooga's government, citizenry, commercial and private businesses participating in community functions and overall growth of the city. And whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities, and whereas July 26, 2024 celebrates the 34th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And now, therefore, we, Tim Kelly, Mayor of the City of Chattanooga, and the Chattanooga City Council do hereby proclaim July 2024 as ADA Celebration and Awareness Month. This is a time when we can come together as a community and recognize and support our fellow residents and with disabilities, their unique needs and their special interests. In witness hereof, we have unto set our hands and cause the seal of the city of Chattanooga to be affixed this day of July the 9th, 2024. Mayor Tim Kelly and City Council Chair Chip Henderson. And Mr. Chair, if you would allow me or indulge me to have a couple of members of the council to come and share a few words. We have the Chairwoman, Shara Zuckerman, and Vice Chairwoman, Deborah Duncan. And as they're coming to the mic, I would ask if the members of the council would please stand to be recognized. And also the interpretation services is being provided by Karen Powell of Chattanooga Interpreting. Ladies.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Deborah Duncan. I am the proud mother of a young adult with Down syndrome, and I've had the privilege of raising him here in our incredible city. And I'm always so proud to tell people about Chattanooga and all the wonderful things that it has for people of any age or stage of their life. And I really appreciate this proclamation because it shows that Chattanooga continues to strive to include everyone, and that all means all, and that includes anyone without regard to their need or to their abilities, and that we are constantly trying to provide greater access to everyone. So thank you very much for this proclamation. Thank you for the opportunity to serve on this council.
Good afternoon, I'm Cheryl Zuckerman. I thank you all for helping make this proclamation. The City of Chattanooga and the Mayor's Council on Disabilities have worked together to be able to provide support for individuals with disabilities. And it's apparent if you look around our city and see all the different access points, accessible parks, playgrounds, things like that are being developed so that everybody can play, enjoy the city. Chattanooga has something for everybody, and that includes people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sammons. All right. Could I have a motion on the minutes, please? All right, we have a motion on the minutes with a proper second. Without objections, the minutes will stand as recorded. All right, council, this afternoon, we will take a recess. During our recess, we will need an attorney-client privilege meeting, so keep that in mind. Looking at this week's agenda, we do have one reading, one item on final reading. We do have Public Works Committee, Public Works, Parks and Public Works, I'll get it out in a minute, committee meeting and planning and zoning. So anything on this afternoon's agenda that might have reference to planning and zoning or Parks and Public Works, we could save it till then unless it's a burning question or desire you need to make now. And that is the significant majority of our items on first reading. Moving to resolutions, anything on this afternoon's agenda under our resolutions that need to be brought to our attention at this point. Councilwoman Dotley.
Yes, there are two items that I wanted to bring up. I'll go to the last item first. On the police, item M, received notice that the young lady, Kayla Brooks, is no longer with McCamey, so I'll be asking to withdraw that item this evening.
And what letter was that?
On the police, letter M.
Oh, okay.
It's toward
All
the
right.
end.
You're
And
going to withdraw that?
Withdraw that one, yes. And I'll go back to the mayor's office. We do have a resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's appointment of Harry Summers as interim police chief for the city of Chattanooga.
Yes.
And so I asked if we would be able to have someone from the administration to come up and give us an update regarding that search.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, all right.
And here he is
Well,
now.
all right. Okay.
You ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Which is my job, so thank you.
Very
So thank you, members of the City Council, and thank you, Councilwoman Dotley. First and foremost, I want to express deep gratitude to Chief Summers on behalf of the administration and the City of Chattanooga. Stepping up to lead in the wake of sudden change is no small thing, but we know that Chief Summers' experience and collaborative leadership style make him the right person at this time. We are confident in his capabilities and his commitment to service with integrity and look forward to working alongside him and everyone at the Chattanooga Police Department to keep our community safe and enforce the law. Mayor Kelly understands that public safety is the bedrock of thriving communities, which is why finding the right person to lead and to serve our city as the next chief of police is mission critical. We have posted the chief of police job vacancy and are in the process of putting the final details in place and preparing to announce a community advisory committee to assist the administration in identifying and hiring our next police chief. This is a critical hire, and we want to ensure that we make the best decision for our community. The Community Advisory Board will play a pivotal role in this process by helping us vet and interview, ensuring that the right questions are asked of each candidate that is in consideration for this role. The makeup of this committee will be reflective of our diverse community, including residents, community leaders, business leaders, representation from the law enforcement unions, and frontline officers, non-sworn CPD personnel, and other stakeholders. We believe that this approach will help guarantee that various perspectives are considered and that the selected candidate aligns with the values and needs of our community. The advisory board's composition will also ensure that we capture a wide range of insights and priorities, helping us to identify a leader who not only possesses the necessary skills and experience, but also understands and values the unique dynamics of Chattanooga. While we thoughtfully consider all of our qualified candidates, the mayor is hoping to be able to select someone from this Chattanooga Police Department.
Through this collaborative effort, we intend to find a police chief who will build on the department's positive momentum, foster trust within the community, lead with integrity, and work collaboratively and effectively to address public safety challenges. Thank you for your attention and support as we embark on this important journey together. There's no more important work that we can do as a city.
Councilwoman Dotley, any follow-up?
No, that was good. Thanks, Jermaine.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, any other questions or concerns from this council under resolutions on tonight's agenda? All right, I am not seeing any. Moving now to next week's proposed agenda. Council, if you'll take a look at that. We do have a public hearing concerning our new zoning ordinance. I want to bring that to the council's attention, as well as a couple of planning items on, which will be second read. And then we do plan to present the new zoning ordinance next week. Any questions or comments? Councilwoman Dotley.
Yes, we do have a committee, a departmental report for Form-Based Code Appeal, FBC 24-4. We are planning a community meeting for that one on July 24th at 6 p.m. And I'll ask if that could be removed until get everything completed with the neighborhood
Okay.
for next week's proposed agenda.
Okay,
It's under committee reports.
That's under committee reports. Mr. Attorney, since that's on next week's proposed agenda, I believe it's my understanding that we can just remove that at this time and then bring it back when we're ready to hear it.
Yes, sir. This does need to have a hearing, at least under the form-based code ordinance here. They're entitled to have a hearing in front of this body.
Okay.
Is
All
there-
right, so we will remove it from next week's agenda at this time, and then you'll notify us when it's ready to be placed back on the agenda.
Yes, I will. Is there a certain time period that it needs to be within to hear the appeal?
I would hate to put them off too long on here as to
Okay.
the property, maybe 2 weeks, if you do that. or
2 weeks.
3 weeks.
Okay, probably the first Tuesday in August, maybe?
First of August?
Okay.
You think we'd be good there?
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be good.
And we'll get notice.
You can update us on that if you'd like to.
Okay, that
Just let us know when you would like to see it back on the agenda.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
Chairman.
All right, anything else concerning next week's proposed agenda? If not, we'll move into future considerations. Council, if you'll take a look at your future considerations, let me know if you have any questions or concerns regarding any of those items. Seeing none, we'll move into purchases. Anything under our purchase items for this week? I think we have 2 purchase items. Okay, very well. I believe that concludes this portion of our agenda, unless there's anything else that needs to come before the council. I will now turn the chair over to Parks and Public Works.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to Parks and Public Works. Can we accept the minutes? Madam Clerk.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened right-of-way in the 1800 block of Alien Street and an unopened right-of-way in the 3300 block of North Hawthorne as detailed on the attached maps, subject to certain conditions.
I see no hands. Ordinance first reading, Public Works, 8A, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning the unopened right-of-way in the unopened 300 block of East Manning Street as detailed on the attached maps, subject to certain conditions.
Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you. This item is noted as being in District 2. It is not in District 2. It's not in District 1, excuse me, it's in District 2. I had asked for the applicant to contact me about this, and I have not heard from them. It is a parcel that has been a real problem within the community, and so I'm going to defer this for 2 weeks. with the expectation that the applicant will reach out to me to discuss this request.
Thank you. Can we note the changes in the district, please? Thank you, Councilwoman. B, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning the unopened right-of-way in the 1000th block of Mackey Avenue as detailed on the attached maps, subject to certain conditions.
See no hands. C, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning the unopened right-of-way on the 3300 to the 3600 block of Coward Street as detailed on the attached maps, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. E, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor and his designee to enter a conservation services agreement for the 2024-2025 with the for Public Land and substantially the form attached for the term of the 1 year from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025 for an amount not to exceed $150,000 to be paid in 4 quarterly installments of $37,500.
Thank you. Can we tackle F to J, please?
A resolution authorizing an administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number R22006201 Heritage Park Improvements to Global Infrastructure, Inc. of Hickson, Tennessee in the amount of $1,541,600.55 with a contingency in the amount of $128,278.85 for a total amount of $1,669,879.40. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y24002-201 Washington Hills Roof Replacement to Foamcrete Inc. of Chattanooga in the amount of $55,923 with a contingency in the amount of $5,592 for a total amount of $61,515. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the on-call blanket contract number E19011-202 for the year 4 of 4 for the roof inspection, repairs, and maintenance with the following 2 vendors: Port Roofing Contractors, Inc. in Morrison, Tennessee, and Tri-State Roofing Contractors, LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee for the total annual amount of $500,000 used by all departments. A resolution authorizing the appointment of Nicholas Parks as a special commissioned police officer unarmed for the City of Chattanooga Department of Public Works, Land Development Office, Code Division, to perform duties expressly limited to the performance of the duties in the position of the Code Enforcement Inspector 1. A resolution authorizing an appointment of Allison Tate as Special Commissioned Police Officer, unarmed for the City of Chattanooga Department of Public Works, Land Development Office, Code Division, to perform duties expressly limited to the performance of the duties in the position of the Demolition Abatement Specialist.
Thank you. Can we go to 9K, please?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number P23001-201 Police Service Center Fitness Area to Skilled Services of Knoxville, Tennessee in the amount of $327,285 with a contingency in the amount of $32,875 for a total amount of $360,065.
See no hands. L, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator of the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y23004-201 Glenwood Community Center additional parking with Kane Industries LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee in the amount of $559,812.81 with a contingency in the amount of $55,187.19 for a total amount of $615,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we're going to have a presentation by Parks and Outdoors Trust Republic Land.
Thank you so much, Councilman. This is the 30th year that the Trust for Public Land has had a contract with the City of Chattanooga. And I thought I'd start off with this slide that is a photo from last September where Trust for Public Land, as part of Welcoming Week
in partnership with Bridge Refugee Services, hosted what we call a Park Picture Day up at the Stringers Ridge Overlook. We had over 100 participants from at least 5 countries, including Syria, Ukraine, Eastern Africa. And of the 100 participants, every single one of them, it was their first time to Stringers Ridge. And Daniela on our team heard from almost everyone, how do we get here and how much does it cost to come back? And the benefit of Parks and Outdoors is that everyone has access, everyone can enjoy the benefits that nature provides, and our relationship with the city of Chattanooga, of our 30 field offices across the country, I can honestly say we have one of the closest working relationships with the city of Chattanooga of any municipality across the country. The 30 years spanning multiple mayoral administrations means we have a level of trust. That's the envy of the organization, and we are grateful to be supporting the city with its goals, supporting the Department of Parks and Outdoors. And I would like to just take a moment to share a little bit of how TPL is committed to our work, what we're trying to advance, and the initiatives that we're doing to support the city of Chattanooga's goals. So we have 4 strategic commitments for the Trust for Public Land. We're focused on improving public health through better access to parks, improving fair access where there are communities that lack access or have lacked investment in parks. We are focused on making sure everyone can benefit from close to home access to nature and more equitable access. We are also focused on how we can make our communities more resilient to a changing climate, and we see parks and open space as a critical tool to be supporting communities that are most impacted by the storm systems that we see. And we are committed to putting community at the center of our work. We support community-based organizations in the projects that we pursue, and we think that when we leave a project, when we complete a new park or a new trail or a new schoolyard, the community needs to be stronger than when we started. We have 4 key initiatives, and we're grateful that because of our trusted relationship with the city of Chattanooga, we're able to advance on all 4 of these, which is a rarity in the Trust for Public Land. We are advancing strategic land acquisition. We are creating new trails that are linking communities. We are supporting new park design development, and we are creating community schoolyards that are creating public access to elementary schools after hours and on weekends and when school's not in session, designed by students, supported by capital funding through the city of Chattanooga, and we are grateful that we can be delivering each of these programs, and they're each outlined in our scope of work within our contract. And I just want to highlight a couple of the numbers. This is from the last fiscal year. We are able to bring national expertise and leverage local funding. So right now we have a $19.5 million federal infrastructure grant that's pending. I want to thank Councilwoman Dotley for her support and advocacy on that oral presentation to the EPA. Thank you. The congressional earmark from Representative Fleischman for the Alton Park Connector. We are so thrilled to have such a strong partnership with the city that we are able to advocate for federal funding and for that funding to be realized. We are receiving national philanthropy to support our partnership with the city of Chattanooga, including $100,000 through our Park Equity Accelerator program. That is helping bring more residents into the process of creating new parks and outdoor assets. We are also focused on how we can bring more state resources to the city of Chattanooga for park access, including getting the city back into compliance for land water conservation funding through the Ridgedale Park conversion. And we just recently, through the South Chickamauga Creek Greenway canoe launch, received over $150,000 of state funds to support the city of Chattanooga. And then finally, the one-to-one public-private partnership for schoolyards is an immense tool for us to scale how we can create more park access within the city of Chattanooga. And I do want to highlight the land protection piece, because in this fiscal year budget, the council's approval of a $1 million land acquisition fund is immense, and we are so grateful. We know that there are 443 acres of park access needed today, over 1,200 acres needed in 2050, and we are focusing on creating priority park access where it's needed most, where we can acquire large acreage tracts for urban ecology preserves or areas of high ecological integrity, and also special purpose acquisitions. In this last fiscal year, we were able to leverage the city's interest in land acquisition to create a revolving land acquisition fund, thanks to the generosity of the Lyndhurst Foundation. And we recently closed the acquisition of the Shallowford Road canoe launch with a 4-to-1 leverage of city funds with public and state dollars. And looking ahead into this year, that $1 million in the city budget, we see that as a starting point for a much more robust opportunity for us to acquire land where it's needed most and really scale impact for parks across the city of Chattanooga. With that, I thank council so much for your consideration of our next fiscal year contract, and we're grateful for your partnership.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh,
All right, thank you so much, Council.
Councilman Ledford.
Hey, Noel, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I just wanted to say once again, we did this a few weeks ago. District 4 has one park, and that's a broken record. But guess what? I'm doing my job. And I'm doing my job because your partnership is moving us and moving the needle towards a second park in District 4. That is an incredible achievement. And we could only do it through your help and your leadership and your organization. Trust for Public Land has been an absolute blessing to this city. So I want to thank you personally for your partnership, your interest in the East Brainerd area, and just thank you for what you do in the city of Chattanooga and the surrounding area. We are very, very grateful to have you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
You good, Councilman?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Assistant Chair Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. No, we just had a conversation and education session really in strategic planning about different ways that other cities similar to us fund their capital projects. I'm looking at different financial tools that we as a council and as an administration might consider for the future. And a concept was brought to us that I had never heard of before, which is generational equity. When we consider how the work we do should be prioritized by, is it something we need to do today, or do we build as we go for tomorrow? And what it brought to mind for me was parks and acquisition of land for parks, because while we might not need a park in a given location today, we know that land only gets more expensive tomorrow. And so if we think about not our generation, but a generation or two ahead of us, if we had done that before the city or the county grew into District 4 and then eventually annexed, we would have more parkland available already in District 4, and it would have been much less expensive, right? And so I appreciate the expertise that your team brings to our city parks department as we think about this. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity in Parks and Public Works to think about this and shine a light on the fact that we need to be planning now to grow our park system so we're ready 50 years from now for the kind of community we want to be then. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. We are, with each land opportunity, you get a sort of one shot in a generation to, there's a decision, does this end up as a park, does this end up as something else? Mm-hmm. And we've sort of seen a cycle where redevelopment of blighted sites or brownfield sites into parks is a thing, but we need to be acquiring those first generation park assets now for those 30 and 50 years down the road and what our city's going to be. So we're grateful to be a strategic partner in thinking about the future of park access.
You good? Mm-hmm. Thank you for the presentation, and to Ross, Scott, thank you for all that you guys do. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Councilman Hester.
We're gonna have a client. Planning zone. Oh man, I can't miss that.
Everybody's
Jump
here.
in.
Come on.
Planning zone.
I mean, planning and zoning is the best committee. I don't know why somebody would want to rush through it.
See, no one's even leaving, Brian.
Oh, I know.
I love it.
Hey, we can pack the room, though.
Pack the room with planning, it looks like planning commission yesterday.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to call the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting for July 9th, sorry. I'm at Planning Commission yesterday. Thank you. If I can get a motion on the minutes, please. All right, minutes will stand without objection. We have 5 cases that were recorded as not necessarily opposition, Brian.
Maybe some
but maybe
concerns,
comments or
questions.
questions or some concerns that we were able to address at Planning Commission last week. We're going to hit those, definitely. We do have a public, or a PUD, special exceptions permit, that I'll have you read into the record. And then we have, council, if you'll look and please accept an additional item to your Planning and Zoning Committee. This is a special circumstance situation that I would like to address at the end of our committee, and then ask for a call for action if the city attorney and the chairman agrees for. So Brian, where do you have cases? I'm having 095 as our first case listed in our presentation. And
Sure.
council, at any time, if you have a case that you see you would like in your district to address, we are more than happy to do so. So just raise your flag, and I will be happy to do that.
Okay, this is case 2024-95 for several addresses on Strickland Circle in Hickson. It's a request to rezone from R2 to R3 with conditions. Proposed use is multifamily units, 132 units. That's a density of 18.3 dwelling units per acre. There was opposition at Planning Commission, but I think there was concerns about the impacts of this development on North Chick Greenway, the creek. We addressed those. It's not being rezoned near the creek, so I think those have been addressed. The applicant did submit several conditions that were not needed, so staff recommended to deny the applicant's request with conditions, but simply approve outright. This case, you may remember, was before you as a body in 2023, was approved on first reading, and then withdrawn at second reading. Look in the zoning map, there's R2 to the north, C2 to the south and east of the site, and C2 to the west. That's roughly 5.6 acres in size, proposing 132 units on the entire site, which includes the C2 to the east of this map. Again, the applicant did provide 4 conditions related to landscape buffer, maximum density, lighting to be directed down the way, and a clubhouse and pool shall be provided. Again, there is some zoning history on this property as it came before this body in 2023. Currently, it's a single-family dwelling. To the north of this property, single-unit residential. To the east is commercial. To the south is commercial on Hickson Pike. And to the west is manufacturing or industrial. Planning Commission looked at this request, or actually staff did. Staff recommended to approve as it's supported by the plan. Staff did not support the conditions. There was no need for those conditions as landscaping is required in the current code. R3 does have density restrictions based on the size of the lot, so there's no need for a condition on density. Lighting directed down the way from residential is already in the code itself, no need for additional condition. The applicant did provide a condition of a clubhouse or pool be provided. That's not required in R3, so therefore there's no need for that condition. So staff recommended to approve straight out R3 with no conditions. Planning Commission agreed, felt it was compatible with adjacent land uses and adjacent development form, and recommended to approve with no conditions.
Very good. Brian, Councilman Smith is not here this afternoon, but I know that he has been tracking this particular project very closely. And if I remember, the concern that was brought up at Planning Commission was the creek and the protection of the creek. And I believe it was stated, and that would be on the record at Planning Commission, that there is no development happening in that area. And although we could not condition that, that was a conversation from the applicant, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. Just to the north of that little square that's highlighted in red, which is zoned R2, that's part of the property owned by this applicant, but he's not requesting that to be rezoned, nor is there any proposed use of that site, which abuts the North Chick Creek.
Which basically will remain untouched.
Untouched.
Very good. I do have a light. Chairman?
Well, you touched on it, the fact that Councilman Smith is not here today, and this apparently did have opposition. Is this something we anticipate maybe deferring until Councilman Smith gets back? Or
Well, since this is on first read, because we are out of order, so normally, let me explain that, thank you for bringing that up. Normally, we would have a week in between cases, but since of the 4th of July holiday, we are hearing cases in committee today, and also a first reading today. So I think that would be something that the council could definitely entertain. Do not know his preference on that. So I think that's a great question. Maybe it is possible to figure that out between now and when we come back from recess. And be happy to try and figure that out. Thank you, Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, to the chairman's point there. The other chairman, there's two other cases there were no opposition that's also associated with this case, so you may want to talk about deferring those as well, if that's which is 94, actually there's two. The MR is coming later.
Okay. Any other questions on 0095? Let's move to 0091. I believe it should be next.
That's correct.
Very good.
This is 6684 East Brainerd Road. This is a request not to rezone, but to lift condition number 5 from ordinance number 13132. Proposed use is townhouse units. There was opposition at Planning Commission. Staff recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. This property is already zoned R4. It's along East Brainerd Road. It has conditions on it. It's currently zoned R4. To the east is C2, to the south is R4, and to the north is R1. It's roughly 1.7 acres in size. Here's the 4 or 5 conditions that are on the property. Business hours are limited between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. No dumpster service between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. Condition number 3, lighting directed away from all residential areas. Condition number 4, any signage limited to monument sign with a maximum height of 4 foot by 48 foot per sign surface. And finally, condition number 5, limited to office or single family uses only. Condition number 5 is what the applicant requested to lift. In 2018, a similar request came before this body. It was actually denied by City Council. So in 2018, there was a similar request. Again, this is the condition the applicant wishes to lift, limited to office or single family uses. It's a very vacant piece of property. To the north across East Brainerd is single unit residential. To the east, abutting this side is single unit residential, and to the west is single unit residential, and then to the north is an institutional or a church. Staff recommended to deny the applicant's request as they felt that allowing all R4 uses at this location would not be appropriate. However, staff did feel that townhomes would be appropriate, and so recommended to amend the condition and lift condition number 1 related to business hours, as the use is not, business is not proposed use. So staff recommended to approve different conditions. Opposition was there. Opposition focused on traffic issues such as backup on East Brainerd, what's happening with the railroad improvements, and how this would impact the development of traffic on East Brainerd Road. Planning Commission reviewed the request and agreed with staff and recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. Here's what those conditions look like. Would 1, lift condition number 1, so there's no need to have business hours as the proposed use is not commercial. Keep condition number 2, condition number 3, and number 4. Amend condition number 5 to say limited to residential uses only. And number 6 is adding a new condition, limit the number of curb cuts for this site to 1 curb cut. So the new conditions would read 5 in total, as what you see on the screen.
Very good. Dr. Burrs, I believe you've been also following this one very closely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've handed out part of a lot of the activity that's been going on. The concern here has little to do with the fact that there are residences, the townhouses, that's fine. It's the traffic issue, sir. It's unique, and Brian, perhaps you can help with this. I believe at Planning Commission, the city deferred to TDOT, correct? Because it's a state
It's a state highway, correct.
All right. So here's the issue. Everybody's in agreement that the townhouses can occur. Based on discussion we had today, earlier, about planning, you've got a public safety issue. I don't know the answer, but I think this deserves some discussion. You've got 2 lanes, it's right there where BMW is, where Bargain Hunt is, and across the street from the proposed site, a year or so ago, Mr. Price had approved appropriately townhouses across the street. Now, none of that has happened, except I think there has to be some significant discussion about public safety. The people from Brainerd Hills are here, and everybody says, great, we need the housing, and it's great housing. But there's a larger issue, and that's the public safety issue relative to this 2-lane road that's already backed up, even though there are only peak times. I get that. But I've not heard any discussion of that, and I think there should be. And I'd like that sort of education now, since later on, we're going to be just voting. So how would you like to proceed?
So let me ask you this, Dr. Burrs, are you wanting to ask for a quasi-public hearing in committee? We would normally not do this, but since we are coming off of a holiday and the first reading is tonight, or an opportunity to ask or receive information at this time.
I think we're talking about a quasi-public hearing or just plain, I'm asking for both. There's not that week to think about it.
There is not
All right.
the normal week.
Right. And I did ask for, is traffic here, city traffic?
So if you would allow me, given the circumstances that we are coming off of a holiday, I would love to engage the staff to have questions. We do have an opportunity for public hearing, for comments to be made from anyone who wants to.
Right after the break.
Right after the break. So I would say at this time, if you would like information from anyone that can give you.
Since the public is here listening, I would love that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so Brian, we may sidestep just for a second on this case. And Dr. Burrs, I'm gonna let you take the reins.
Okay.
And ask any questions you would like for information, ma'am.
All right. Well, what I've handed out to my colleagues, the developer, and the neighborhood has this information as well. The developer has done a really good job of looking and seeing how this situation could be ameliorated. I don't think we ever should intentionally create a more dangerous situation, and this is an interesting one. We're a city council making decisions when the road we're talking about is a state road. CDOT's not known for its speed, and I'm trying to figure out how we can knowingly create a situation that we know is unsafe, or maybe, and I guess it's the legal aspect, do we in fact put the state on notice that we're aware that they're not doing anything create? So at least the notice issue there is if, God forbid, something should happen. So I guess the only people I can hear from right here is our own safety, our own traffic people.
Correct.
So are they here?
Bill,
I had
was one, he's not.
I had asked for a traffic study and said I wanted one.
Okay.
I believe the developer also acted in good faith and asked for studies. And the outcome of all of this written stuff, which is very righteous and makes sense, is nothing we can do. It's a state highway. And are we negligent by creating a situation that we know may be dangerous? Dan, it would be great if you speak as well, because I'm trying to figure out the best thing to do here.
No, we are not. We are never negligent as local governments. That's a joke. I do think we need to work with state DOT, and we can work with them. Just because it's a state highway doesn't mean we can't get together with them and talk about this situation. And we did not anticipate that today, but we will absolutely follow up and make that happen. I'm sure Bill can be a part of that if he wants to.
Yeah, and I know I'm here because Ross could not be here at the meeting today, but I'll certainly be able to take this back and get with our.
Well, I've already spoken with your traffic people, and I hope they might be here today. I still hadn't gotten a response. But apparently, and what I'm going to do is attach a response, which I'll be happy to give you, that covers everything from the developer, which was a very righteous response. But I'm going to attach it to the minutes and ask tonight that it be attached to the minutes so that whoever needs to be on legal notice that it creates a dangerous situation will have legal notice that it creates a dangerous situation.
And Councilwoman, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure there's not a dangerous situation. I think you're.
I think it is one. And it has little to do with the zoning. The neighbors are not afraid of the zoning. It's going to be a nice development. The dangerous situation is something else.
And we have a good relationship with Tennessee DOT, and I'm sure they will be happy to talk about this.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And Dr. Burrs, may I ask also, while Bill and Dan sit down too much, how much time do you think you might need? I'm sensing a deferral, Dr. Burrs.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
I'm going to let the neighborhood speak to that in a bit. When we get back to it the second time, this is first blush, they're very clear on how they feel. It's almost like a friendly amendment because if you read it, the developer tried to look at a deceleration lane. Everything's been looked at.
Right.
The only reason I'm doing this are the legal reasons, sir, and that is I want to make sure everything's on record so that everyone's on notice that we had noticed that there might be a problem.
Very good.
And I appreciate it, Dan, you putting on record that you're going to do everything you can to ameliorate it because it's not a safe situation, which has little to do with the zoning aspect, which is all we're looking at tonight. Thank you, sir.
Very good.
I'm good.
Thank you, Dr. Burrs. Thank you for staying with that so close. Any other questions or comments? Case 0091. Brian, moving to 0100, if you have.
Sure. Let me get to that one.
That queued up, thank you. I'm sorry, let me get. Councilwoman Dotley, I see your light over there.
That's, you said
Did I?
100?
100, or is that?
That's mine.
That's yours?
I was just waiting.
Then you are ready to go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ready? Sure. This is 2700, 2704, and 2706 Long Street off of Broad Street. This is a request to rezone from R3 residential zone to UGC with conditions. The applicant did supply a condition of residential uses only. Proposed use is multi-unit residential, 18 units with a density of 21.1. There was opposition at Planning Commission. Staff recommended to approve with conditions, and PC recommended to approve with conditions. Here's the property itself. It's zoned R3. To the north is R3, and to the south is R3. To the east, abutting this property is manufacturing, M3, and to the west is R3. To the north along Carr Street, there is a UGC property sitting there. To the northwest is RTZ, and further northwest is UGC. There's UGC in the area. There is precedent for that type of zone. Again, the proposed use is townhomes, 18 units. There is no zoning history on this particular piece of property, but I went through the other UGC and RTZs that have been zoned in the area. Here's the aerial view of the property. To the south, abutting this property is single unit residential and vacant property. To the east is a park. To the north is single unit residential, and further north across 27th Street is multi-unit residential. And to the west across Long Street is single unit residential. As I stated, there was opposition at Planning Commission. Their concerns were no townhomes in the area, no condos. They felt it was not going to be affordable for the community, and they wanted residential uses only, no commercial in this area. Staff recommended to approve, as it did comply with the land use plan. Staff recommended 3 conditions. Those were residential uses only, maximum building height of 3 stories or 40 feet, and no more than 4 attached units per each mass building along Long Street to make it very compatible with the single-family detached dwellings that you see along Long Street. Planning Commission agreed that it was compatible with the adopted plan and recommended to approve with the same 3 conditions the staff recommended. So this comes to you with approval with 3 conditions.
Okay. Councilwoman?
All right, thank you.
You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for the presentation. We did have a very robust meeting with the community, went very well. So they are in favor of this project with those amendments, with 2 additional ones that I wanted to add in. One was no short-term vacation rentals are allowed, which I believe for that, they wouldn't be allowed anyway, but want to make sure that's there. And an 8-foot privacy fence to be installed along 52, 58, and 64 West 27th Street. So those are the 2 additional conditions to be added to this. So either added as an amendment, or will we be able to get it as an alternate version this evening?
I would recommend we do that from the floor as an amendment.
Okay. I got
If you
it.
don't mind.
Yes, sir, I
Yes,
got
ma'am.
it.
Very good.
And that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
But I know that the city attorney is feverishly writing those down.
I'm sure, I hope so.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilwoman. Brian, are we on 0103?
I think so.
All right. You're doing great, by the way, in Karen's absence.
It's hard to replace Karen.
Well,
Well, you see, it takes Dan and I both to replace her.
It's questionable at that. But that's okay. We appreciate Karen, that's for sure.
Now, this case, I don't know that it was necessarily opposition, and they may be here today. The applicant was going to hold a neighborhood meeting with the neighborhood association in Glenwood. That didn't happen before Planning Commission. They just sent a letter stating they had maybe some concerns. All listed as opposition, so it may not necessarily be opposition. I do believe they had a neighborhood meeting after Planning Commission, but I'll be glad to go through it. This is 905 Glenwood Drive and an unaddressed property in the 900 block of Glenwood Drive. This is a request to rezone from R1 to UGC for a medical office. As I stated, I did list it as opposition, but I think it was more about a little bit concerns with the neighborhood meeting. Staff reviewed it and recommended conditions. PC recommended to approve with a set of revised conditions. Here's the property at the corner of Robbins Street. It's just to the north of Memorial Hospital. This is owned R1. To the east, to the side across Glenwood is R1 and RTZ. To the west is R4. Again, it's the proposed medical office. There's no zoning history on this property, but just the northeast in 2021, 912 Glenwood Drive was rezoned from R1 to RTZ. There is no UGC in this general vicinity. However, there is one within a mile of the site. You can see it's a vacant structure, it's a vacant lot. To the west is a parking lot for Memorial Hospital. To the south across Robbins is again the parking lot for Memorial Hospital. To the east is single unit residential, and to the north is single unit residential and vacant property to the east. This site is surrounded by medical offices, the hospital, and single unit detached residential land uses. The proposed medical office would be compatible with those adjacent land uses. However, the UGC zone allows some other heavy, intense commercial uses that would not be appropriate, such as auto-oriented uses, adult-oriented establishments, and late-night venues. Because this site is adjacent to single family to the north. And also, in order to orient the proposed office building towards the hospital and away from the residential, staff came up with 2 conditions that would front the building on Robbins Street and have parking to the rear, and also provide a substantial buffer between the residents to the north and this proposed 4-story office building. So that was staff's recommendation. They had 4 conditions. At Planning Commission, there, again, I put it as opposition. I'm not sure they were really opposed to it. They just more had concerns. Planning Commission felt the request was compatible with the 2020 adopted Area 3 Historic River to Ridge Plan. Applicant had revised conditions, and Planning Commission agreed to those revised conditions. So Planning Commission agreed to 3 conditions. or recommending 3 conditions to this body: residential, office, and medical office with accessory retail uses only, vehicular access off Robbins Street, and a maximum building height of 4 stories or 50 feet. So these are a little different in conditions from staff and planning commission. But this comes to this body with approval with 3 conditions.
Very good. And I concur with your assessment on opposition. A lot of times at Planning Commission, we have questions or concerns, and we try our best to answer questions with the applicant, obviously, there.
Yes.
To do that. Councilwoman Coonrod, do you have anything you'd like to add on this? You're good? Okay, then I see no other lights. Brian, that concludes our ordinances on first reading for this evening. Let's move into resolutions. Do you have 0104? Yes.
I do.
The special exceptions permit for a PUD.
Yes, this is not a zoning case. This is a planned unit development, residential planned unit development on North Moore Road, 1277, 1283, and 1291 North Moore. It's a residential PUD for single unit attached, or townhomes, if you will. 63 units. That's a density of 3.4 dwelling units per acre. There was opposition at the Planning Commission. Staff reviewed this request, and Planning Commission reviewed it and recommends it approved with conditions. It's currently zoned R1. There's no change to the underlying zoning. It will remain R1. To the north, across North Moore, is RTZ and a special permit for a PUD. To the east of this site is R1. To the south and west is R1. Again, it's roughly 18 acres in size, 63 units. That's a density of 3.4 dwelling units per acre, which is low density residential. It's a vacant piece of property and wooded. To the north, across North Moore, is single unit detached, and I think there are some attached units there as well. To the east is single unit, and to the south is vacant land, and to the west is single unit detached residential. The request with conditions is compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. It is compatible with the land use plan. Staff recommended approve with 3 conditions. Maintain a 25-foot landscape buffer consisting of existing vegetation along the entire PUD perimeter, except for ingress and egress, and no grading shall occur in this buffer except for the removal of dead and diseased tree species. Condition number 2, trying to control the massing of the buildings. No more than 5 attached units per each massed building shall be permitted. Also provide a street connection to Bella Vista Drive and Drummond Drive. This street connection will be required to be built to city standards as a public street. There was opposition present, but it was more about concerns if this development didn't happen, what would happen with the property. There were some drainage concerns on the property because I think this is some low land that is flooded for quite some time. They did like what the applicant was proposing, but they just had concerns if, the applicant didn't develop this, what would happen with the property. So Planning Commission reviewed the request, heard all the comments, and recommended to approve with the same 3 conditions that staff recommended. And here's the revised site plan or PUD plan that meets those conditions as staff recommended and Planning Commission recommended. And it shows the massing of 5 units per building and a landscape buffer and the street connections as proposed.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Councilman Hester, anything you'd like to add?
We did have.
Hang on one sec. Chairman, I did see your light. I'll come right back to you. Thank you. Councilman Hester, hit your light for me one more time, please, sir. Thank you.
We did have a meeting with the developer, and however, they wanted a second meeting that never did happen, I guess, based on the time frame. A lot of people were on vacation last week, but I think I may defer this for 2 weeks, and we'll come back to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Hester. Chairman, I see your light, sir.
Sure. First case that we have on the plan, and didn't have any opposition, but I just want to let you know that I was good with that, since I'll be in the chair position.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Appreciate the notification, sir. Thank you. Brian, do we need to talk about the EECBG?
That would not be.
You don't want to talk about that? Okay.
Well, I could.
I'll just make a note of it. This is an application to accept an energy efficient and conservation block grant, but just as what's noted in the agenda. So, Brian, I'm going to give you, you don't want to talk about the vehicle technologies grant either?
What do you want to know about?
It's just a resolution.
Just a resolution, is all I know.
So we are going to back up and go into what happened at Planning Commission. So if you don't mind, I'd like to invite the new vice chairman of the Hamilton County Chattanooga Planning Commission, Mr. Chris Anderson. Chris, you want to give us a little bit of context as to where we are at?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
New zoning code.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your support and your work yesterday and all the time you've put in. We got a unanimous approval yesterday at Planning Commission for our brand-new zoning code that will now be coming to this body as early as next week. There were no dissenters, and only one person came to speak at the public comment period at the end. And I think that's evidence that we've done now 5 different public input sessions in different locations around the city. In this building, the DRC, and other places further out. This council has had 4 work sessions. Each of the 9 council members has contributed something to the final ordinance package. You've all got something in there that you've changed or added. And I think that it truly represents the entire will of the full council. And I'm really proud to be a part of it. Thank you, sir.
Chris, I appreciate your leadership and hard work. What folks may not realize is this has been going on now for
a little over 3 years.
3 years of work and development. And when we released this at Planning Commission in December, since then we have answered, and I say we collectively, I'm going to say you and the RPA staff have answered hundreds and hundreds of questions, and a tremendous amount of changes were made during this process, along with council's work sessions. Now, does that say, to be fair, this is not going to have some changes or edits? And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what's coming in January. Yes, we are going to see some items as we move along that need to be addressed, and we are openly and transparently ready to do that.
Yes, and before I answer that, we have one of the finest planning staffs in the United States of America. Without Dan and Karen and Brian and Emily and Darian and their team, this would not have happened. We wouldn't have a new zoning code. So I want to make sure that the credit goes where it belongs to the staff and RPA.
I agree.
Sorry, what was your other question?
My other question was, let's talk about where we're already starting to compile for January, getting ready and prepping, because well, it's just a natural part of this process. This is a huge change. As I think you said, fundamentally, probably one of the largest changes in city legislation since 1961. Is that what I heard?
In the zoning code, for sure, and in city legislation, I think since the reorganization of government in 1990, this is the biggest text change to the Code of Ordinances of the city. And Phil can tell me if I'm wrong about that.
Sure. Yes, it is.
But we already do have a list, because this piece of legislation, like every piece of legislation we've all ever been involved with, is imperfect and needs to evolve and change with time as the city changes. So we already have a short list of things that we'd like to tweak in the next update. Mayor Kelly has asked us at the beginning of this that we conduct quarterly reviews of the ordinance once it's passed, or after it's passed, quarterly reviews for the first year, and then annual reviews after that. But of course, this council can amend the zoning code any Tuesday they wish. Yep. So I hope to see that going forward. We've already started planning for either in November or December a special work session with the Planning Commission so they can generate ideas to make this great zoning ordinance even better. And I've already got a little list, and I know Dan's got a list, and Karen's got a list, little things here and there. No need to slow down the overall package of the legislation, but things that we would tweak in January when we bring this council a new list of changes.
And so moving into the public hearing scheduled for next week, we have had a public hearing already occur at the Planning Commission, which happened a couple of weeks, was it 2 weeks ago now?
It was 2 weeks ago. We had, thank you for reminding me.
Special work session and a public hearing where we engaged with stakeholders at that level again.
Yes, and yesterday technically was the second time we've had a public hearing at the actual Planning Commission.
Yes, so there has been ample opportunity, and that has been the goal all along. I know it's been from the administration, I know it's been from council stress, that this be an incredibly transparent and open process. We've been in the J.B. Collins conference room with open doors many, many times, and I appreciate where we're at today. So my question for the council, and I have to verify this with the city attorney, is given the process, this is also worth noting, Chris, that the original version has gone back through the planning commission process.
Yes.
It came to us, council engaged, several months, conversations, went back through zoning, planning commission, sorry, and has gone through, I guess, the ringer twice.
It has,
And,
yes, sir.
and are we, are we there yet? Yeah, I think we're pretty good on the solid base, and we're working towards obviously some edits and changes that our stakeholders are still providing, and we appreciate their input tremendously. So my question for the council at this time is, next week, we're having a public hearing. We're holding a public hearing on this, and the vote is scheduled on the agenda. And is there any objection to the vote happening after the public hearing next week, knowing that if there is anything during the public hearing that should come and a council member would need another week to find out answers, that option is always available, and that option is certainly on the table. The city attorney has indicated to me that, and I understand the process, I've been up here long enough to know that we normally have 1 week, but this is an unusual process where we have been working on this for a long time. And if council is okay, then I would like to leave that on the agenda with the option, if there is anything that council needs to address or any council member, they obviously can motion and we can defer that to get them the information. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Burrs?
Yeah, I would prefer that we go ahead. This is an ordinance, it takes 2 readings, and I think no harm is done for us to go ahead next week with both happening at the same time. If after the public hearing, there are doubts or concerns, because we've done so much already, then we can always postpone the second hearing. But I think we should go ahead.
Thank you for that input. Council, any objections? Mr. Attorney, any objections?
I just want us to comply with the law. And
Are we in compliance with the law?
The statute, at least in Tennessee, regarding municipal zoning at 137203, for the record here, does require a public hearing before you can adopt things. And there has to be notice at least 15 days in advance of that public hearing. And the public hearing by the Planning Commission doesn't work. So it's got to be by this body before you adopt it. So as long as we've accomplished that, I think we are good for a first reading, but want to make sure at least that is aware.
So the next most important question, have we met the requirements of the state for a public hearing notice?
I will confirm, but it is my understanding there has been notice in advance, 15 days in advance of that hearing.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments on the new zoning code process? I see your light. Madam Vice Chair?
Just briefly, can you talk us through what our next steps would be regarding the mapping process? Because we know that that's very important, and then getting the community input on mapping.
Yes, and matter of fact, I'm going to ask our RPA staff to come up and elaborate on that and walk us through that. This is an important question, Madam Vice Chair, thank you for asking it. It's come up in our workshop many, many times, but since we are here and folks are so engaged in planning and zoning today, I think it's a great opportunity for us to tackle it one more time.
It's a great opportunity.
Dan?
So we are really excited to be at this point, and I can't say enough about Chris and Brian and Karen and the other staff, all the work they put into it, and council. Thank you so much, and Planning Commission. Absolutely, we will have a new ordinance and new districts after this adoption by council, and in doing so, we have to then go through every parcel in the city of Chattanooga with our GIS and mapping staff, and make sure that we legally have a zoning for everyone today, an equivalent zoning for what they are today. It's not going to upzone anyone. It's just going to say your property is legal before. It's going to be legal, and any conditions, any changes or anything that were made in the past, those are reflected in your new zoning. There's definitely going to be probably 99% of parcels that'll be very, easily done, or not very easily, let's just say it'll be done. But there'll be definitely a group of parcels and rezoning cases that we're going to have to go in and spend time looking at the conditions, looking at the new districts. We might have to meet with property owners and help them understand what the changes are. But it is absolutely our intent that every property that is currently zoned legally today will be zoned legally under a new district. We have no intention or any interest in trying to make someone have less entitlement on their property. That is not what's happening here. So it's absolutely trying to work with property owners and just make sure everyone's satisfied at the end. It's important to folks that are undeveloped property or halfway through the process, but I mean, almost every zoning in this city is something that's already built. And so we're not taking away anybody's current property value or anything else. So it's I won't say it's a complicated process, but it's one that we are not going to rush through. We'll take our time. We'll make sure we do it well. We'll do it with the city attorney's office, and it'll be very transparent. And so again, it's just another step in the process.
Does that help, Madam Vice Chair?
Well, I was hoping to get a little bit of information on
Timeframes?
timeframes.
I think we're shooting to have the equivalency mapping by October for this body. I think that's our goal. We're actually meeting on Thursday this week to talk about what that'll look like and have more of a detail. We're thinking October.
I think we actually already have a lot of it done.
Yes.
But I mean, we haven't really dug into it.
And then the next piece after that October mapping is complete is letting our communities see and further understand how this affects.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So one thing we're going to be doing almost monthly for the rest of the year is with both Plan Chattanooga and this ordinance is just helping folks understand the whole process.
Okay.
And again, there is no rush here. It is entirely on the schedule of council and the community. We are just thrilled that, we're able to have the opportunity to do it and to take our time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Chairman, I see you.
Dan, you might want to come back up, Mr. Chairman. So I heard October and I heard no rush, but I also heard that we're going to adopt this code, and I've got a feeling we're going to start seeing rezoning requests reflective of this new zone. And I have said repeatedly, I'm really not interested in looking at a request for a rezone with a new code until we have a map that lays everything out. And so I just want to make sure that we're not being rushed to ask to rezone by the new code if we're really not in a rush to remap. So I appreciate Councilwoman Hill's, the Vice Chair's comments about the process and some timelines, because I think those things are critical, and making sure that these neighborhoods associations are engaged once we start this remapping so that we've got community involvement. This part, to me, is just as important as the engagement that we had in developing these new zones. So I want to make sure that we're crystal clear about this process.
Absolutely.
Dan, you want to talk about the 90 days?
90 days.
The implementation period.
No, go ahead.
I meant Chris.
Chairman, I think you're asking about the implementation period. Normally, an ordinance for this council has a 14-day implementation period before it becomes law. We've written in a 90-day implementation period into this bill so we can catch up on the mapping. And one thing that hasn't been said yet is actually 75% of the dirt in Chattanooga is zoned R1. So we know where 75% of the mapping is immediately. So it's going to be RN1. Depending on where you live, it's going to be dash something else.
Right, that's significant.
Right, but we know already where all the 5s, 6s, 7.5s are today.
Okay.
Because it's based on geographically where they are in the city. So 75% of the mapping is done by flipping a switch.
And also to say, anytime we have a rezoning case after this date, we will make sure we've mapped everything around where that rezoning case and got it very accurate. I mean, if there's any concerns about, you're worried about rezoning something with a map, and it's going to take some time, but we will absolutely make sure we don't bring anything before council that's not correct. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Any other comments or questions for Dan or Chris? Gentlemen, I'm seeing no lights.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Council.
Chris, you might want to hang out real quick. We're going to go into the
Yes, sir.
Ziegler Road cases real quick. Brian, we have an ancillary item today, cases 0127, 0128, 0129, a bit time sensitive in nature that we need to address that did come out of Planning Commission with an approval from PC.
Sure. I don't have a presentation since these just happened yesterday. Briefly, there were 4 cases that were heard at Planning Commission yesterday. I think our goal is to get this on the July 30th City Council agenda. We'll advertise.
It's July 30th. Yeah.
I say July 30th.
Yep.
City Council. As long as we advertise, I get the stuff to Maria by tomorrow. We can get on the 30th. But those 127 was to lift and amend conditions. Staff and Planning Commission recommended to approve. Those were recommended approved to this body. EMR 2024-128, that's a 10-foot right-of-way abandonment on Ziegler Road. Planning Commission and staff both recommend to approve that abandonment. That's needed to, on the western side of Ziegler, to put in some landscaping that should have been installed. And finally, case 2024-129, that's to rezone a 4-foot strip of land north of the existing property from R1 to R4. That was approved and recommended by Planning Commission and staff to this body, which will be on July 30th. Although I'm not sure on the MR, since that goes to our transportation department. That may...
And sometimes they lag behind the coming out of PC by about a week. So we'll probably need administration. That's why I had Chris nearby. We'll probably need administration to kind of keep an eye on that one as well. So
we'll advertise all 3. That way we're
covered. We need to have 15 days for zoning notices. So if council will indulge that, me and chairman allows that to be placed on the July 30th agenda, then we will go ahead and do so. I'm seeing no objections. So this concludes planning and zoning. Council members, do you have anything you would like to bring forth to add this afternoon? Chairman, how much long are we going to recess? I know we have an attorney-client. We have attorney-client. Is that going to give us time? Is that going to give us time? How long, Phil?
I'm just looking.
Yeah, I'm hearing her.
If you can get me at least till you want to come back at 5:30?
Chairman? 5:30, Chairman? All right, 5:30. Thank you, everyone.